Good morning. Today is the 17th day of Adar. It's March 10th, and we're in the sixth reading of Parashat Tissa. And the parsha starts with an incredible verse, which literally reads like this: God replied, "I hereby make a covenant before all your people. I will perform wonders." Wonders is the name of our magazine. This is the only time that this word appears in this spelling in the entire Pentateuch. So before all your people I will perform wonders such as have not been performed on all the earth or for any nation. And all the people among whose midst you live shall see how awesome is the deed of God which I will perform for you. What we have here is a unique statement of covenant, and probably the word that the inner dimension of Torah, Kabbalah and Chassidut most dwell upon in the end is this word called Brit, covenant. And it's a word that basically today the entire world is looking for. It's the word that creates an everlasting bond between two parties, and specifically as it's described in Chassidut, as the Alter Rebbe explained it, this word means a bond that is above and beyond reason. In other words, that there are contracts that are made between people, and they can last through some pretty difficult times, but eventually contracts fall apart. A covenant is a bond that's made in such a way that the commitment is eternal and that nothing, even no rational reason, can sever the bond, can destroy this bond between the two parties. So the first covenant that God made that we know about is the covenant that He made with Noah. Before Noah went into the ark, there's actually two covenants with Noah. Before he went into the ark, He promised him that, the way it's usually interpreted, is that all the food that he brought into the ark would not rot. The fruits and vegetables that he brought into the ark would last for as long as needed. That was the first covenant. The second covenant was after he came out of the ark, and there we find the word covenant repeating 7 times in what's called the covenant of the rainbow. The rainbow covenant, as they call it now. And these 7 repetitions of the word covenant, obviously they correspond to what later became known as the 7 Noahide laws. The next covenant after Noah was made with Abraham. And here too, God made 2 covenants with him, but they're both on the same topic, the land of Israel. And He promised him, He made a covenant with him to give him the land of Canaan, to make it into the land of his offspring, of the children of Israel. And there are 2. There's a covenant that He made with one word, just once, the word covenant appearing once. And then, in relationship to the same covenant, He made what we call the covenant of circumcision. And there the word covenant appears 13 times. And that's considered to be the greatest covenant. And it's already based on the performance of a mitzvah, of a commandment. The commandment was to circumcise. And now we come finally to the covenant made between God and the Jewish people through Moses. And this is called the covenant of the Torah. In other words, the Torah becomes the sign of the covenant. Before we had the rainbow by Noah, we had the circumcision by Abraham. Now we have the entire Torah becoming the sign of the covenant. And what does He say to him? That because you are accepting the Torah now, and this is just before Moses is coming down from the mountain and is giving the Torah to the Jewish people, second time one might say, but in any case, this is the giving of the Torah. So, since you accept the covenant, He says here, I will create wonders for you, for your nation, that all the nations of the world will see. What are these wonders we'll see in a moment? So these are the 3 levels of covenant that are always described in the writings of Chassidut, which I don't know, I'm not aware of anyone before the Alter Rebbe, the founder of Chabad, who put such a stress on these different covenants. The Talmud mentions it in passing in the tractate of Berachot. I believe it's on page on folio 58, side A. And there it mentions that the covenant of circumcision is greater than the covenant of the Torah, because the covenant of the Torah was made in 3 places, or 3 times the word covenant was used. This is one of them. This is one of the 3 places. Again, it was repeated. This covenant was repeated again before they came into the land of Canaan. But it says the covenant of circumcision is the greatest, or at least it mentions that you need to say, you mention the covenant when these covenants when you say the grace after meals, the Birkat Hamazon. But apart from that, I don't remember anyone making a big deal out of these 3 covenants. Now, what do they really mean? What's going on here? Why this succession? Where is this all going? The covenant with Noach is a covenant that the sages describe in a different Mishnah that is in chapter 5 of Pirkei Avot, of the Ethics of the Fathers. And there they say, man is endeared for he has the image of God in him. Chaviv Adam shenivra b'tzelem, for he was created in the image of God. What does this mean? It means that man has intelligence. The image of God in man is our intelligence. It's our ability to tell the difference between right and wrong, and good and evil, and true and false, and so on. This is what we call our intellectual soul. So the intellectual soul is a tremendous shift from the other animals. All the other animals don't have this ability. They can't distinguish between left and right, between up and down, and what is righteous and what is not, and so on. And so a covenant that was made over that means that God is coming and saying, as long as you continue to exercise, as long as you have, not continue, but as long as you have what we call an intelligent soul, a soul of intelligence within you, this is what this covenant is about. This is what it means to have the image of God within us. Above that comes already the covenant with Abraham. The covenant with Abraham is above the intelligent soul. It's above the ability of man to differentiate between right and wrong. It already is in the context of man being able to follow God's commandments. And it's the beginning of the commandments. The first commandment that Abraham received, the one he was waiting for, the circumcision, it created a covenant, a bond between the Jewish people, Abraham's descendants, and God, that is above the intelligence. Why above the intelligence? Because we all know that the commandments are not necessarily comprehensible intelligently. They have many reasons. There's many reasons that we can give for why we do them, but in the end we do them because of the value of following the Word of God, and not because of our intelligence. So where does that leave the covenant with Moses? We would have thought that Abraham indeed received one covenant, one commandment, but really it was Moses who received the 613 commandments. And there's always something that's always discussed, which is that brit, the Hebrew word for covenant, is equal to 612. It's one less than the number of commandments in the Torah. And so there's a technique that the Kabbalists always use, which is that to unite something, you also add one more. It's called the all-inclusive one. So that from 612 you come to 613. In any case, the covenant with Moses is deeper, because what he says here is not just that you will follow me. That is already the covenant with Abraham. What God is saying here is that I will dwell within you. I will make wonders within you which have never been seen before. What does it mean to have a wonder? Well, since he made this covenant through Moses, at the end of our Torah reading, at the end of Parashat Tissa, in the 7th Torah reading, we read what this means. It means, as the Torah says, that when Moses came down from the mountain, he did not know that the skin of his face had become radiant when God had spoken to him. And Aaron and all the Israelites saw Moses and beheld the skin of his face was radiant, and they were afraid to approach him. That is the first and foremost manifestation of this covenant, that you become wondrous in and of yourselves, that people feel that there's an emanation of light coming from the face of someone who upholds his covenant through the Torah. And specifically, it's not just the commandments here, but like he's saying here, the wonders are specifically the inner dimension of Torah. So this is the covenant that God is now making with us in the 6th and 7th portions of Tissa. I want to end with one small thought to end this with, and it's a very important thought. Really, the succession of covenants is coming and saying that God becomes more and more imbued within us. By Noah, all it was the intelligence. By Abraham, it became the commitment to the actions, to the will of God. And the will is higher than the intelligence. The radiance that comes from this covenant over the entire Torah is the radiance of basking in the pleasure of being with God. And it leads to a faith which comes and says, as we know, that when Moses spoke, he was speaking from his throat, but it was the voice of the divine presence. That's what it means to rise up in these covenants, from thought to will to even pleasure in God, the pleasure that we have, for instance, on Shabbat, which is also mentioned in our Torah reading, today's Torah reading, the 6th portion. The same joy that we have in taking pleasure, in basking in the pleasure of God Himself. It's like the way that the souls bask in the pleasure of God in the Garden of Eden. That is the result of this covenant that is in today's Torah portion. So may this inspire us that really the highest level that we can reach is when we do things the way that Moses did. He simply spoke, and it was already the words of God. He didn't have to be commanded what to say. That's called natural consciousness. That's called a state in which we naturally flow with the divine presence. We naturally flow with God's will. It all becomes natural. It doesn't become something that we need to be commanded to do, as Abraham was, but rather flows out naturally. And that's the purpose of studying the inner dimension of Torah, because it transforms the command into something that flows naturally through us. And so I wish you all a Shabbat Shalom, and hope to see you on Sunday. We'll figure it out. Hopefully I'll be able to teach from England, and then we'll continue on to New York. And looking forward to seeing everyone. Thank you. Bye bye. Shabbat Shalom.